you have brought some excitement to my life. I would like to share with you a remarkable story. It's really a story about the vision of one man, and that one man is Sasha Lishin. It seems rather strange that this company is so unconventional. It's a business that was started by a fella, Sasha, who's half French and half American, because his mother's American. He was educated between the US and France, which means to say that when he wants to be westernized American, he can be very American. Mm-hmm. When he wants to be French, he can be very French. And he's got me, a Chinese from Singapore, representing him in Asia, China, Australia, and New Zealand. Mm. What is even more remarkable is that he has created a whole new category, which all the wine experts in the world said was doomed to failure. How can it be that you can make a serious wine out of rosé? How can it be a success, a French wine with an English name, Whispering Angel? But he had a vision. Sasha has had his share of failures, but he has great persistence. He doesn't give up. He saw an opportunity to do something because sadly, as a young man, his father died when he was quite young, when he was 29. He took over his father's property in Bordeaux, and he did not like the way business was done. He did not feel satisfied with where he was. He could have continued and been comfortable, but he wanted to make a name. He wanted to create a legacy. And so he tried various things, and today's story is not about those things that were not successful. But he looked first in Bordeaux, of course. Why not create a brand in Bordeaux? Well, he has said many times, it is almost impossible, certainly very, very difficult to create a brand that can compete with Mouton Cadet. Mouton Cadet is very successful, much to be admired. The other point about wines that are made in Bordeaux is that the vintage is inconsistent and that's why you have such a variation in the price of a Bordeaux wine. Because some years it's terrific, some years it's so-so, and some years it's terrible. How do you build a brand with inconsistent wines? So forget about Bordeaux. Burgundy is much the same thing, with the added complication that Bordeaux estates are large, Burgundy estates are small. So it's very hard to scale it. You do not have a brand, not anymore, there were in the past, brands the size of Mouton Cadet. So anyway, lifestyle, making wine that people enjoy is very important to Sasha, because to him, if you want to build a brand, as the brand owner, you must go into the market yourself. You cannot just leave it to other people. You have to go and work, because you have to promote your wines, your brand. You have to educate people. You have to hear feedback. That's how you improve. And you have to sell wine so that the people who work with you, your distributors, restaurants, sell a successful wine. They make money, they're happy, you are happy. All right? So lifestyle is very important to Sasha. And there is no doubt that the lifestyle in the south of France is wonderful. It's the playground of Europe, and Provence particularly. So that is the background of where he was coming from. But why rosé? He remembers as a young man traveling around that area with his father, and they were enjoying the rosé that was made, but it was too sweet. You couldn't really enjoy it with a meal. And he remembers, even after a very long time, his father saying to him, one day somebody will make a great rosé. One day somebody will make a rosé that I will enjoy drinking. So he remembered that. Now, why Provence? Well, it's very simple. When you think of the best sparkling wine in the world, it's champagne. And champagne is to sparkling wine what champagne is. So for rosé, it must be Provence for many reasons. It's the climate, it's the soil, and so on. So that's why Provence for rosé. I have had arguments with people when I have done talks and just enjoyed dinner over Burgundy. And after a while, people say, you talk about Burgundy as though it's the best place for Pinot Noir. Are you telling me that somebody up there, if you believe in a God, said Burgundy is where the best Pinot Noir is? Well, it's not for me to say that. It's for wine lovers to decide that. But it so happens that it's a combination of the climate, the soil, suiting the grape variety, and of course, many hundreds of years of experience of making wine using Pinot Noir, the red, Chardonnay, the white. And so in Provence, it's much the same. They have the type of soil and the climate and the market for rosé. Now, coming to the property, what is special about Chateau d'Esclans? Most of the vineyards, of which there are 400, are near the coast. So near the sea, naturally, can we go to slide number 5, please? This one, yes. So most of the vineyards are near the coast. The problem with that is that the vineyards near the coast have very sandy soil and they make very light wines which are lacking in flavor and fullness in the mouth. Chateau d'Esclans is inland. Where is it? It's about 40 kilometers north of this famous playground of the rich and famous called Saint-Tropez. Saint-Tropez is to the right of the red area, and it is about 75 kilometers northeast of Nice. So the nearest airport is Nice. So it's very special. And the other things that are special about Chateau d'Esclans is that the vineyards are on slopes. Now, why is that important? It's important because the vineyards get bathed with sunshine, which, number one, prevents rotting of the grapes. And number two, after rain, it enables to be drained very well. And that's an interesting point. Now, we make several different cuvées or levels of quality of wine. How do we achieve that? Number one, it's the age of the vines. Number two, it's where they grow. So the higher up the slope, the superior or the better the quality is. Okay, you follow so far? Yeah. So Chateau d'Esclans is very special. Chateau d'Esclans today, the whole property covers about 472 hectares, of which 114 is dedicated to the cultivation of vines or the growing of grapes. Can we have the next slide, please? This is the property. It was built, the origins was, the foundations are from the 12th century, but most of the building was built much more recently than that, just over 100 years ago. And it is indeed very beautiful. It is not only the home of Sacha Lichine, it's also a guest house. So if you have the opportunity to visit, there is a villa in the back. You will be invited to stay. It is also our offices. Okay. So in 2006, Sacha acquired this property. Next slide, please. Here you can see a little bit of what I mean. The ground is sloped. This area among local people has a nickname. Oh, you can ignore since the acreage that is reported here has increased quite substantially. Among the locals, this area is called La Petite Afrique, because if you look at it without being too discerning, it looks like the valleys in South Africa. So it's called the Little Africa. And Eklan, where does the name come from? During Roman times, this was a Roman garrison because it's near the sea, and the way to transport people, goods, and troops is by boat. So they had many little settlements. And a settlement is a clan, C-L-A-N, which is an English word, it's an Anglo-Saxon word. And so these were the clans, and in French is les clans, all right? So I throw in a little bit of all of this for you. I always say to people, I'm not that interesting. There are many more interesting speakers than me. And what I tell you, and I've spoken and you don't remember, really doesn't matter. Because if it's important to you, you are going to remember it anyway, all right? So I hope that's helpful. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so the talent, the founding leaders. So there's Sasha, he's a big man. So when he comes to visit you in Indonesia, please arrange a big car, otherwise he can't get into it. He enjoys his food, and he's a great supporter of his distributors and customers. So Sasha is the man with the vision. The fellow on the right is Patrick Leon, and he is part of the equation. Sadly, he died in December 2018. I saw him the night before he died. So it's a very sad occasion for me. Now, what is special about Patrick? Patrick was for 25 years the managing director of Chateau Mouton Rothschild. So he is accustomed to crafting not only Mouton. The unusual thing about Mouton is that it didn't have one chief winemaker. They had a winemaking team. So it was a winemaking by committee, which often works best because you cover a different range of tastings, taste profiles. Patrick not only oversaw the winemaking team as a managing director, he was the head of the committee, but he was also responsible for setting up Opus One in Napa and Alma Viva in Chile. So remarkable. And it is because he brought the ideas for making first growth Bordeaux to Provence that made these wines so remarkable. Can we have the next slide, please? If I'm going too fast, please stop. I will pause for a moment. Now, all these are fine, but let me tell you something. So Sasha came into this with very high ambitions in 2006. In 2006, the total production was 135,000 bottles, which is very small. Today, it's 8.5 million bottles. But that's also remarkable. In the space of 14 years, to go from 135,000 bottles to 8.5 million is no easy achievement. But in the first 2 years, as Sasha himself often says and tells people, it was very difficult to convince people to sell wine. He would walk into a restaurant and say, I would like to have you taste my rosé. And they say, no, 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 rosé doesn't sell. Nobody drinks rosé. Nobody wants it. But he was very persuasive. And this is what he means by, as a brand owner, you must lead the charge. You must go and taste. And nearly every time somebody tasted it, they said, all right, send me a case. I'll put it on the list. And the success has grown. But it didn't happen overnight. And as you all know, in 2008, there was a terrible economic crisis when banks failed in America. So 2 years into the enterprise, and most people would have given up. The banks wanted their money back. But where did the money go? I will explain to you. And that also explains why the wines are of such exceptional quality. When people ask you, why is it so expensive? There's a reason, okay? Now, what do we grow at Chateau d'Esclans? We are different again. If you look at it, 77% of the grape variety that is grown is Grenache, because it is the backbone of all our wines. The minimum amount of Grenache in the blend is always 75%, sometimes more. The next biggest component is Roll. Roll is the Provençal name for a popular Italian variety which you will know as Vermentino. So Roll and Vermentino are the same. Now, what do they contribute? Grenache contributes red berry fruit, roundness, and surprisingly, a high degree of elegance. Roll, on the other hand, brings with it the floral characteristics because it's white light wine in that you drink it chilled. It's aromatic as Vermentino and it has lovely mouth-filling properties. Where we're very different is that if you look at it, we only have 3% Syrah. Very different from Domaine Art or Miraval or anybody else like that. Why? Because going back to Sacha's objective and his brief to Patrick Leon, I want a wine that I can enjoy any time of the day, and I want to enjoy with food, without food, with ice cream, with nuts, with beef. So the problem with Syrah is it gives rosé a very candied lollipop flavor. So don't throw it out, reduce its importance, reduce its contribution to the blend. So that's an important distinction between us and our competitors. All right, next please. Now we get into winemaking. Temperature is very important because what we want to do is achieve freshness. So a lot of money has been spent on rebuilding or building new facilities. From the moment the grapes are received, the entire premises are air conditioned. And if you can imagine, in a place like France, electricity is very expensive, but there is no choice. If you want to make something of first-class quality, you cannot compromise. So temperature throughout the facility is controlled. Next, please. Okay. Here, I will elaborate a bit further. The picking must stop by midday. Picking starts in the middle of the night, 3, 4 in the morning. Very often by mid-morning, like 9, 10 a.m., picking stops. And it must absolutely stop by midday. This is a decree from Sacha. Why? Because it gets too hot. Winters are cold, but not bitterly cold. That's why people from the north, like Paris, come and escape down to Provence for the weekend. But it's still winter. It gets down to 6, 9 degrees, so it's cold. But summer can be hot. There are hot summer days when it's hotter than Bali, believe it or not. It can go up to 40. So that's when the swimsuits, the bikinis come out, people go to the beach and jump in the sea, right? So picking is very strictly controlled. More than that, what isn't mentioned in this slide is that the bins that we put the grapes that are collected into hold no more than 10 kilos of grapes at a time. So one person can carry it. And if you think about it, very often you carry hand luggage onto a plane. Your bag is going to be 8 to 9 kilos. So 10 kilos is nothing. So that's another strict control. When you take into account, you think about it, you stop people from picking. You wait till the next day. You control the quantity that you pick and so on. There's going to be wastage. This is a cost, but it's a sacrifice worth it because you're going to get wine of very high quality. All right. Can we have the next one, please? This is a bit of innovation. The piece of equipment that you see, that funny little looking computer screen, happens to be a very expensive piece of equipment. It is what is used in Bordeaux, mostly only by the first growth properties. What it does is, first of all, the grapes that come into the collection area is already sorted by hand. So the obviously rotten grapes are thrown aside. But each grape passes down a chute and it is examined in a millisecond by an optical eye. If it is not the quality that they want, a puff of air blows it away. So this is an optical sorter. This electronic piece of equipment is arguably the single most expensive piece of equipment at the vineyard. And we're the first people, and I think we're probably still the only people who are crazy enough to employ such a machine. But again, if you want quality, you have to do it. So electronic sorter. Right, next one, please. What happens here? Freshness is retained by keeping the grapes that come in chilled, and thereafter the whole process. So to keep them chilled, the grapes are passed through what is called a heat exchanger to keep the temperature at 78 degrees Celsius. And what this also does is you don't want to have a wine that is overly colored. We don't want it bordering on red, so we want it pale. We don't want extraction because with extraction, you're going to take the tannins out of the skin, which is not desirable because you end up with bitter wine. So this is another important piece of equipment that we employ. The next, I think, is a presser. The more skin contact you have, the more color you extract, and the more color you extract, the more tannin you also extract. And that is not desirable. So it goes into this horizontal piece of equipment, one with a red top, which is kept in a zero oxygen environment with the use of nitrogen gas. It's sophisticated, it's new style, and it is something which is borrowed from not Bordeaux region, but the Champagne region, where they make some of the most luxurious and most expensive wines in the world. So where we had a Bordeaux technique with the optical sorter, we have a Champagne technique for pressing. And again, more and more people, as the whole category becomes more successful, are switching to equipment like this. But hey, we were the first to do it in 2006. All right. Next one, please. Fermentation. Why stainless steel tanks? Well, you don't want to have fermentation in wooden barrel for a wine that you want fresh and light. So they all start, whatever the level of the cuvee, they all start in stainless steel tanks, and then there's a deviation. For example, Whispering Angel, our best-selling wine, the leading rosé, Provence rosé around the world, it's only stainless steel. We do not age it in barrel. So the stainless steel tanks you can see there on the left side of the image. And on the right, they are 600-liter. The name of these type of barrels are demi-muid. It was found through experimentation that the more traditional barrels that you use in Bordeaux and Burgundy and Rhone, 225-liter barrels, they impart too much wood. So what are we saying? Do you want wood or not want wood? The whole point about aging in a barrel is it provides a very good vessel, a very good receptacle for the assembly to take place of the different components of wine. The different components are different grape types, different age of vines, different parts of the property that they come from. So the different parts have different climatic exposure. So there are all these little barrels of wine which you have to assemble in the right proportion to get your magic formula. And then you have to put them in a place where they can rest and come together. And that's the main purpose of the barrel. It's not to impart wood flavor, okay? And here we employ, can we go back one more? Here we employ a technique from Burgundy, having visited Bordeaux, having visited Champagne, now Burgundy. And what is it? Burgundy is a generally is a monovarietal region, meaning white is Aligoté or Chardonnay, red is Pinot Noir. Further south in Beaujolais, it's Gamay. And so the effect of the lees or the yeast that is in the barrels is very important, but you've got to give it a stir. And that stirring is called batonnage. And this is the system, the technique that they employ to create the Grand Cru white Burgundies. And so why not use it in the making of rosé? And that's what we've done. All right, we're ready for 6. All right, blending. Oh, I've already touched on this. So as I mentioned, we borrow a little bit from everywhere, from Bordeaux, but always best practices from Burgundy, from Champagne. And what is important, what is key, is recognizing the contribution each little parcel of wine provides. And that's what makes the final result, creates the final result. So what's important is the variety of grape. As you know, we grow Grenache, Rolle, Syrah, Sansol, Tiburon, right? And then there are some vines which are 5 years old. The oldest that go into our Grand Cuvée, Garous, they're 90-year-old vines. So age plays a very important contribution. And as I keep saying, soil is important, elevation is important. We're fortunate enough to have all of these. And then it's a question of balancing stainless steel and wood barrel fermentation. After Mr. Leon died, his son took over as the head winemaker, but he had already, up to that point in time, been involved in the winemaking for 8 years. So he did not come unprepared, inexperienced. So Bertrand is the gentleman with the red jersey on the left of that picture. The fellow in the middle, Jean-Claude, is actually Sacha's very first employee after he acquired Chateau d'Esclans, even before he engaged Monsieur Leon. And who is Jean-Claude? He's the estate manager. So he's from there, he's born there, he lives there, he works there, so he is literally from the soil. Nobody knows the estate better than him. So it's a wonderful team. And then the picture below is the tasting when they make the assembly or the blending. And as you can see, it's not easy. It takes some talent and a lot of experience. I haven't been invited to try, but I wouldn't dare because it's just too difficult and it will waste everybody else's time. All right. And by the way, that picture is the dining room in Chateau d'Esclans. All right, next please. And here is our little lineup. So what are these? Whispering Angel is what created the success of this enterprise. And Whispering Angel is the wine that put Provence on the map. It is amazing because it created a whole category. And now, when you go to any wine show in the world, every hall that you walk into, somebody is making a rosé. Maybe it's not from Provence, but somebody is making a rosé because it is so hot and fashionable. Will it run out of steam? Will it fall out of fashion? We don't think so, because has champagne gone out of fashion? Has Chateau Margaux gone out of fashion? No. So underpinning our success and driving the success is Whispering Angel. What you can see is there are rosés for different levels. They are different styles. So literally, Whispering Angel starts at the bottom of the slope and with the youngest vines, and then you step up to Rock Angel. And Sasha has a saying that we started with a whisper and now we rock, which I think is very clever. I have to tell you things whilst I remember because I get very excited and there's a lot to share with you. Why Rock Angel? Well, it's like, why Whispering Angel? Whispering because Sasha wanted to find a name which could roll off your tongue and would be easy to remember. Within the chateau, there is a little private chapel because it was the home of a rich family. So they didn't go to church, the church came to them. So they had a little chapel. And in the chapel, over the entrance, is a fresco of two angels, exactly as you see on the label. So the name was taken from their Whispering Angel. Because Rock Angel moves up the quality level and moves up the slope, literally, the plot of land, the band of land where the grapes are taken from, a little higher up the slope, it provides for a wine with more intensity, with more definition, and therefore more minerality. If you call your wine Mineral Angel, it's somehow a little bit salah, yeah? So Rock Angel, because rock refers to, it takes reference to the minerality. I won't talk about Desclon, the one in the middle, Esclon yet, because it's a restaurant-only wine. We have had criticisms from, or helpful suggestions from sommeliers to say, we can't, much as Whispering Angel and Rock Angel are popular, we don't want to compete with supermarkets and grocery stores. So a wine was created and released last year, 2019, called Desclon, and it's a restaurant-only wine. Then the top two wines are Leclan, which are from 80-year-old vines, and Garus, which are from 90-year-old vines. And as you can imagine, the quantity we produce of each of these two top cuvées is very small. So let me touch about marketing these wines, successfully selling them. It's important to try and taste where it's possible. It's important to try and taste all four of our foundation wines with the customer, not to sell them all. Yes, if we can. It's to taste Garus, Leclan, Rock Angel, and Whispering Angel, starting from the bottom. Because then the buyer or sommelier will be able to understand that you are able to achieve different quality levels. And then it comes to marketing. We would like to position Whispering Angel and Rock Angel as wines to be offered by the glass. Just as you would have Moet and Chandon non-vintage as the pouring wine. But you've got Dom Perignon at the top. Dom Perignon is the big brother, big sister of Moet and Chandon. And so that's where Garous and Leclan comes in. It's the luxury cuvée. So when we say we understand luxury branding, luxury marketing, we really do. And we put our money where our mouth is by creating the range. Can we move to the next slide, please? So let's talk a little bit. Would you like to interrupt me with some questions, or shall we save it to the end?
I think we save it from the end to the end. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Whispering Angel is the only one which is a bit of a rojak or gado-gado, if you like. It's got a bit in about the proportions in which they're grown on the estate. I mentioned that the youngest vines are about 5 years old. There are some even younger ones because part of the process is to rejuvenate the vineyard. And you all are wine students, you probably know much more than me. But replanting of a vineyard is an extremely expensive exercise. Not only is it over 25,000 euros for an acre, but also you have to wait 5 years before you're going to use what you harvest in your blend. So even with that, we're not tempted to hurry. We wait patiently for the vines to be at least 10 years old before the grapes are harvested to go into Whispering Angel. I think what I look for with Whispering Angel is the pale color. It's a very pale pink, but it is very mouth-filling and it finishes dry, which you need with food. There is 0 sugar added. It's fantastically concentrated. And I've said, because of our success, our estate enjoys, on a worldwide average, about 5% of the total Provence rosé market, which is quite remarkable. We like to look at what is done well. And another remarkable success is Cloudy Bay in New Zealand. Before that, who really knew about Sauvignon Blanc? But Cloudy Bay has got a fantastic following. And we like to see ourselves as Whispering Angel being the Cloudy Bay of Sauvignon. Whispering Angel being to rosé what Cloudy Bay is to Sauvignon Blanc. So I'm going to have a little glass of rosé. I'm sorry you can't all join me, but I'm doing all the talking, so I deserve a bit of wine.
Please.
And I wanted to show you, even on camera, that it really is a very pale color.
Yeah.
This is 2019, which is the current vintage. And let me share with you how remarkable this wine is. When Singapore first imposed a lockdown on April the 7th, overnight, all restaurants stopped doing business.
Yeah.
And that is a very significant part of our business, restaurants. You know, in Asia, more is consumed on-premise than off-premise, so restaurants are very important. A lot of people panicked at first, but recovered very quickly. And we have never seen sales of Whispering Angel so great in Singapore. We have one customer who has been pouring Whispering Angel for 5 years with an average depletion of 68 bottles a month, 68, less than 70 bottles a month. in the first 4 weeks of the lockdown, they sold 1,664 bottles. Our distributor was sitting on 4.5 months worth of stock. In 5 weeks, they were totally out of stock. And the second month, the same customer again took 1,600 bottles. But that is exceptional, but not just them. Everybody who was retailing Whispering Angel just could not get enough. So it has remarkable success in any situation. To everyone's health and enjoyment selling Whispering Angel. I love the taste of this. It's an anytime, any day wine. Shall we have a look at Rock Angel, please?
Yes.
So as I said, we're moving up the quality level and literally moving up the elevation. The key to Rock Angel is that it's predominantly Grenache and raw, to the exclusion of the other varietals. Sometimes a little bit is blended in, but not in significant quantities. So there is quite a stark contrast, and the only way to appreciate it is to taste them side by side. All right. Would you like to, let me just run you through Les Clans and Garus. We need to skip this one, yes. Les Clans is a tiny production. This slide was done and not updated. The vines are now 70 to 80-year-old, and the production is only a few thousand bottles, a few tens of thousands of bottles a year. If I'm asked to pick a favorite, I think it probably would be Les Clans. And I tend to buy it for myself in magnum bottles to share with friends. You're getting into Grand Cru category here. And it has been suggested by a wine writer that, is it time for a Grand Cru Rosé? And if it is time for Grand Cru, the leading candidates would be Les Clans and Garus. Garus for a long time, let's have a look at Garus. If you look at it also, Garus and Les Clans have custom design bottles. They're big, they're rounder, the top is different. Another advantage we had not planned for was that in this age when there's a lot of imitation going around, because the production of Garus and Les Clans is small and exclusive and the bottles are customized, it's very difficult to fake. So customers are reassured that what they buy is genuine. And it's, I think, the right product for the right time, because the appeal with the increase in wealth among consumers for something special is there, so there is a market for it. And as I said, on a wine list, we wouldn't like this to be pouring, and we wouldn't be able to provide sufficient volume anyway. But it's for that special occasion. It's one of the questions that I'm sure somebody will ask is, what about ageability? Well, Whispering Angel that has no barrel aging goes straight into bottle. And by the way, we bottle Whispering Angel 4 times a year. So December is the first bottling. Then around April, mid-year, July, and the last bottling is around October, which sees it through to the next vintage. Ageability is not a factor because we encourage people to consume Whispering Angel when it's young and fresh. Rock Angel is good for between a year to 2 years beyond its vintage. I have been tasting some 2011, so it's 9-year-old Les Clans and it's absolutely beautiful. But that it could be an exception. Could be an exception the way it's been stored in my cellar. It could be an exception that 2011, nearly all of which is consumed, will not happen again. So we'd say at best, because this rosé meant to be enjoyed young and fresh, 2 to 3 years for Les Clans and Garous. Okay, so I hope that's useful to you. Maybe to get into the bit that would be of interest to you, selling tips. Try this you can share with everybody. It's just to give you an idea, blowing our own trumpet, how successful we have been in the US market, which is our biggest and most important market. We would like to suggest that you always try to present all four wines if it's possible. But even more important is that you must, if you are selling wine, if you're a sommelier, to convince a customer to try it, you need to taste with that customer. It's very, very key. And part of the message is that, hey, it's a great wine to drink. It's a rosé that pairs really well with food. And for all of you and your colleagues, can you think of a more fun wine to sell? Frankly, you can't fool around with a Coton Charlemagne. You can't fool around with Chateau Haut-Brion. You know, when you're having a dinner, you should dress up, should have a tablecloth. You have to behave yourself. You cannot be a big gila. But there is no such rule for rosé. There is really no such rule for rosé. So that's what we mean by it's fun. And the more people realize that it's a wine that goes with salads, the classic Mediterranean diets. I very happily and very often have a steak with rosé. And it's also a no-brainer. So you open one wine, nearly everybody's going to enjoy it. And it lasts throughout the meal. And, you know, it's a wine that you make money selling. So why is that important? Because if you make your customer happy, it's very likely that your customer will order a second glass, if it's by the glass, or if it's a little group, they will order a second bottle. And even more important, they'll come back to your establishment. So these are the things that I wanted to share with you today. And I'm very happy to take your questions.
All right. So you still need the presentation, or we can switch off the
No, we can close that because it's the middle of the afternoon. And I don't know how many people are still awake listening to me.
37 people listening to you. All right. So, Pak Yon, if you can just stop share so we can have a look on each other faces. So, a couple of questions actually, but I believe the question from Togu is already being explained through the explanation itself. He was basically asking about, are you doing cold fermentation or hot fermentation? Obviously, it's already being explained later on the presentation before. How long is the maceration? It's already answered, 3 hours. How do you say Tibourne? Tibourne?
Tibourne. 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 Yeah. It's a popular grape type in that part of France.
Okay. And also one of the specific only to Provence, the grape variety, or you can
No, but most popular in that part of the world.
Okay. All right. The next question is how the rewining process and what material that use?
You mean fining with egg white?
Yes. Yeah.
Very classic.
Okay.
The way it is treated in Champagne and Burgundy with egg white.
With egg white. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's somebody's in the winery is opening all the egg for rewining.
Oh, we eat a lot of omelets.
That's true. And so guys, if you have more question, just put it on the chat, or if you want to talk by yourself with Alan, you're open to unmute yourself for the question. I would like to ask about very curious about the sorted by optical eyes electronically, right? So I'm not really get the point when you are describe that. So the grape is already being sorted, hand sorted for all the rotten part, and then it's go to the tray and going to that machine. So that optical eyes is basically adjusted by the size, the sugar content, or how is actually work with the optical eyes electronically.
The bottom line is it is a test for ripeness.
Okay.
So, you know, sometimes they're a little bit big, sometimes they're a little bit small. That's not important.
Okay.
Maybe the skin is a little bit crinkly, maybe the skin's a bit taut. But what's important is ripeness, because what you do not want in, even in a small percentage in the blend, is underripe grapes.
All right. So it have to be under the perfect ripe.
The really rotten ones will have been sorted manually when they come into the receiving area by the people working at the table.
So that is when it's spot on. I mean, there's something that, you know, the grape is, they found it is not the perfect ripe. What is actually doing is
there's a powerful jet of air.
Okay.
And because all this happens faster than the eye can see.
Okay.
So the grapes are literally falling down a tube.
I
see.
see.
There's an optical eye that has been set, it's been calibrated. And if it doesn't meet the minimum requirement, but as it falls a little bit further, a blast of air will blow that grape away.
Oh, I'd love to see that. That will be something like very interesting to see, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It's
It is,
but
right?
you have to come. You have to come during the picking season.
True.
If you go in January, everybody is away, sitting by the fire.
That's true. That's true. You said that during the harvest they're picking up in very small crate, which is only 10 kilos.
10-kilo bins.
Okay, the 10-kilo bins, and I believe it processed right away on the screening and etc. Right?
Thank you for reminding me.
Okay.
So we try to adhere to an objective of having the grapes travel no more than 1.5 kilometers from where they're picked to the receiving area.
Okay.
To minimize the time that the grapes at the bottom get crushed.
Okay. So meaning that, what about the vineyard who are a bit further than the winery location?
The Chateau or the estate bottle wines, which is Garus, Lakeland, Eklan, and half of the blend of Rock Angel, there's no problem because it's all within the estate.
Yeah.
Whereas if we buy in the grapes, we actually buy in the juice. So the stipulation is that the grower that we buy from must send it for pressing within 1.5 kilometers if it's possible. But in any case, we have a very stringent quality control process so that we only accept to buy what has met our standards.
All right, and I believe that the one that you are buying, like the providing juice that you are buying from the grower, is basically only go to the Whispering Angel, I believe, right?
Whispering and some into Rock Angel.
Okay, all right. Another question from Togu: did you produce red and white wine as well?
In the early days, yes, because we still had to get income. But as of 2 years ago, they stopped. So now it's 100% rosé.
All right. Okay.
But to note that, Alan, there's Sasha Lishin line as well, right? That produces red and white wine.
Yes, but that is not sold under the Chateau d'Esclans label. That's sold under domain Sasha Lishin. He still has a negociant business in Bordeaux. So you can still buy Bordeaux wines, a small range of Burgundies, and wines from other areas.
All right. Okay, there's another question from Chandra. They're still fascinating about the optical eyes electronical machine. How much it costs, just to estimate, just to find out, curiosity.
Saya kurang tahu.
Mahal sekali pasti.
Yes, it's the single most expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah, that's why not many winery also using it. That's true.
Right. Well, unless your objective and you're not deterred from it is really to make the best quality wine to your ability, as opposed to making wine to fit a price category, you wouldn't do it because it's a major expense and it's a long-term commitment. You must believe that you're going to be successful.
Yeah, obviously. Otherwise, you're not going to be invest yourself with buying that sort of machine.
And who do you sell it to?
True. That's true. That's true. All right, that's another question. So, Chandra, if you're still very curious, maybe you start to Google. Maybe it's somewhere in there telling you the price of the machine. There's another question from Han. What is the minimum fermentation time for rosé wine? The minimum fermentation time.
I'm sorry, I used to know the answer, but I've forgotten because I'm not asked for it very often. But I will find out and I will pass the answer to UNESCO to filter out.
Alright. So nanti ya dikasih jawabannya. Have you disclassified Garus to Les Lakeland, Estate to Rock Angel or Whispering Angel and so on?
What do you mean?
The Togu, your question is not really clear. Have you disclassified Garus to Les Lakeland, Estate to Rock Angel or Whispering Angel and so on? What do you mean? Togu, if you want to just unmute yourself and explain, because I don't really get it, your questions.
Sure, Bu.
Okay.
So the question is, let's say you made Garus in certain years, but unfortunately the quality didn't meet to be made as Garus. And then did you do the classification to Leclerc or to
I understand what you mean.
Okay.
So if we don't make the wine, maybe we put the wine into the lesser wines.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it has never happened because it goes back to a very early part of this talk when I said one of the reasons why Sasha did not attempt to this kind of brand building in Bordeaux or Burgundy is because there is always a possibility of a year that is too wet and the wines rot, the grapes rot, and you're not able to make a wine of sufficient quality. We don't have that problem in the Provençal area because the climatic conditions are relatively stable. So far, after 14 years, we've been able to make a wine of the quality that we require in order to classify as a Garus or Lakeland. The only issue we have, we don't, so far, touch wood, we haven't even had insects or other disease affecting the crops.
Yeah.
In 2018, we had a problem with hailstorm, which destroyed, my guess, and from my memory, about 35% of the crop. That was the only problem we've had, but it was not a quality issue, it was a quantity issue. So I hope, Togu, that answers your question. We've not faced that problem because that's one of the reasons Sasha chose to live his dream in Provence.
All right. Alan, I'm curious about the Desclan range. You said that the Desclan was creating for the restaurant because they don't want, right? So in the content itself, it's a different wine from the Whispering Angel, and or is the same, only different level? Or
it's 100% estate grown grapes. So it's not from grapes or juice that we buy in, but the wine is not as big or as rich or as intense as Leklan and Garus.
Okay.
It needs to be a more universally appealing wine, but it is 100% estate wine. And it has been treated in these demi-muid, these 600-liter barrels, but not more than 10 months. 10 months is the limit for aging in a barrel.
Mm-hmm. As even though you're using a larger barrel, I believe that the flavor of the oak is still influenced to the wine. Are you using the, like, I believe you're not using the new barrel for that
No,
production, right?
no. It's at least 1 year old.
1 year.
It is inevitable. You will
Okay.
get a little bit of oak character, but that is not the reason it is aged for a period of time.
Like the one that you have in Garus, you have like almost 1 year in oak.
No, 10 months
10
maximum.
months only. Not 10 months only.
Yeah.
All right.
And I've said it, I think 2 or 3 times. Sasha really believes in going out, visiting the market, working with distributors, working with restaurant staff. And it's important that you're not only here, but you take those suggestions, those ideas, if they're good, and innovate with them. And I should raise it now. Can you imagine our customers who acquired in 2006? In 2020, they're 14 years older. The amount of money they have to spend is hopefully greater.
Yeah.
Their taste has changed. They've become maybe more sophisticated. So they will continue. They may move up from Whispering Angel to Rock Angel to Leklan. But in the meantime, there is a new generation of drinkers coming in who don't want to be associated with what maybe their older brothers and sisters or maybe their parents are drinking. So we've come up with a very clever product called the Palm. It's young, it's hip, it's still from Provence, but it's Chateau de Provence. So it's from a larger area.
Yeah.
It has a screw cap. It has pink livery, of course, palm trees. And it's very tongue-in-cheek. So the ice bucket is a paint bucket. If you Google The Palm by Whispering Angel, you see?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And UNESCO, have you got the cup?
Do you have the cup?
So it's because we envisage this drunk
Nice.
by the beach, around swimming pools, at barbecues, and you don't want to have a glass. So they have these very cute pink plastic cups that look like the disposable cups that you buy in a supermarket.
Oh, nice.
So
Very interesting.
these are the ideas. So we listen, you can see the cups there. They're really fun. And we promote it with a surfboard. We promote it with a camel. And again, this goes back to what I was saying. You can do crazy things which are fun.
Yeah.
So long as the wine is serious and you give people value for the money, you can do things like this with the rosé that you simply cannot do with a lot of other wines.
True. Like you said, from anytime, wine, anywhere.
That's why for us who are involved in this business of Sasha, it's so much fun.
True. All right. So anybody have another question before we wrap up the session? It was very interesting. I mean, it's really giving us the inside information and understanding as well. I think if nobody have another question, I will have one question last. Do you think everybody is facing the climate change? Do you think that the Provence will be too hot at some point, and will be changing the whole of the style of the wine, or you need to adjust or do something like that?
I think that the effect for an area, not just Desclon,
Mm-hmm.
The effect for an area like Provence is less because we have the influence of maritime, which means to say that the winters are not so severe, the summers are not so severe. It's affecting vineyards in Germany particularly badly because for what is the most important grape for Germany? Riesling.
Yeah.
Riesling, to be elegant, needs a long ripening season. But the ripening season has been shortened. So the wines lose a little bit of the elegance for which they were famous. And where they could make an ice vine nearly every year, maybe every other year, now it's 5-7 years in between before they can make an ice vine because the winters are simply not cold enough. So the effect of climate change in those northerly vineyards and inland vineyards is very severe. But we are near the sea, we're by the sea, the influence, and we're that much further south, so the influence of climate change is lessened. Yes, for sure, it will affect us. Maybe the summers will get hotter, but we've got the sea breeze.
Yeah.
And in winter, when the vines are hibernating, it's not going to have such an effect.
All right.
That's a very good question. We are watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Even before anybody asks, we are asked, what about biodynamic and organic? We try and practice sustainable cultivation.
Yeah.
So we are not biodynamic, but we use chemicals only if it's absolutely necessary. And in any case, the best wines everywhere by everybody have always been made using natural methods. So the proponents of natural wine, it makes them sound as, don't get me wrong, there's some very good natural wines, but there's also a lot of rubbish out there. The proponents of natural wine make it sound as though they're the first ones to think about it. But if you look at the best producers in Bulgaria, in Piedmont, in Burgundy, in Pauillac, they have always been practicing natural winemaking.
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
Thank
I
you.
think everybody just saying they just in love with the Whispering Angel. Thank you for the presentation. And there's a note about a lot of rubbish out there. Togu will just highlight that.
Oh, you have to delete that.
All right. So, Alan, thank you so much. It was a very interesting presentation, and it was an interesting session. I believe that everybody, because the presentation is very clear and is also giving us a lot of information. So we need to close the session, unfortunately, but thank you so much for for assisting us to have the session. Pak Yon as well, thank you so much from Prima Wine to assisting us on the session. So it was very, very interesting. So I would like to ask everybody to open the video because I believe that there will be a photo session online. So everybody open your video so we can see each other. Jen, I think I see a lot of people. Pasis, hi, how are you? Iksan, thank you so much for joining. Just to remind you guys, next week we have another session on Thursday, but it will be something very interesting because we have to do it in the morning, like 10 in the morning, because we are talking with Tarapacá. So the speaker will be live from Chile, and with the time difference, so we have to do it in the morning, like 10 o'clock. I will send you the information later on and also the link for the presentation. So next Thursday it will be a breakfast session, which is 10 o'clock in the morning, and talking with about the Fina Tarapacá. So picture, Alan, your best smile. Okay, everybody, 1, 2, 3. Let's go to the next slide. I will go to the next slide first. 1, 2, 3. All right. So once again, thank you so much, Alan. It's been a pleasure. Looking forward to welcome you in Bali after this pandemic. So
thank you, Alan. Thank you, Bu Wit.
Okay.
I look forward to it. I look forward to meeting each and every one of you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bro Yoneski, makasih ya.
Makasih, Bang Togu.
Thank you, Pak Eki.
Thank
Happy,
you.
bye Alit. Thank you. Pak Billy ada nih kayaknya. Pak Billy udah hilang belum?
Halo?
Pak Billy mana nih? Ngintip di sebelah.
Pak
Bye.
Billy, sebentar. Pak Bill.
Pak Bill, bye.
How are you?
Good, as you should.
Nada.
Bye.
Good luck on your selling Whispering Angel.